The first thing I noticed was the shaking, not the kind you get when you're cold or nervous. This was deeper, like something inside my bones had come loose and was rattling around without my permission. I'd hold my coffee mug in the morning and watch my hand tremble like it belonged to someone 30 years older than me. My daughter saw it before I did. She grabbed my wrist one afternoon and said, "Dad, how long has this been happening?" I didn't have an answer. I didn't even know it was happening until she pointed it out. But that was only the beginning. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that the answer to every question I had was sitting in a small amber bottle on my kitchen counter, the one my son filled for me every single morning with a smile on his face and love in his voice. Or what I thought was love. Hey everyone, what you're about to hear might save your life or the life of someone you care about. So please, subscribe right now and hit that like button. Drop a comment below with your thoughts, your own stories, your own experiences. Quick note, while some details have been changed for privacy and some moments are dramatized for storytelling purposes, the message here is absolutely real. Recognizing danger from the people closest to you is real. Now, let's begin. My name is Frank Calloway. I'm 66 years old, and for the better part of 4 decades, I built houses. Not the cheap kind. Not the cookie-cutter subdivisions that go up in a weekend and start falling apart in 5 years. I built real homes. Custom work. The kind of craftsmanship where every joint matters, where you measure 3 times before you cut once, where a man's reputation lives in the walls he raises. I started with nothing in 1986. A pickup truck, a set of tools my father left me, and a willingness to outwork every other contractor in Middle Tennessee. By the time I retired, Calloway Custom Homes had built over 400 residences across Davidson, Williamson, and Rutherford counties. I had a crew of 37 men and women who trusted me. I had clients who came back to me for their second and third homes. I had a name that meant something. I retired in March, 8 months before everything started to fall apart. My wife, Linda, had passed 2 years earlier from pancreatic cancer. Quick and cruel, the way that disease always is. One day she was planting tomatoes in the backyard, and 4 months later I was standing in a cemetery trying to remember how to breathe. After she died, the work kept me going. It gave me a reason to get up, a reason to move, a reason to exist. But my body was telling me it was time to stop. My knees ached from decades of climbing scaffolding. My back protested every morning. My doctor told me my blood pressure was creeping up and that stress wasn't doing me any favors. So I sold the business to my foreman, a good man named Ray who'd been with me for 22 years, and I stepped away. My daughter Emily was 31, working as a social worker in Memphis. She called every Sunday, sometimes twice. She was the kind of person who remembered things: your favorite meal, the name of your childhood dog, the exact date you quit smoking. She listened when you talked, and not in the polite way most people listen, where they're just waiting for their turn to speak. Emily actually heard you. She was her mother's daughter in every way that mattered. My son Derek was 34. He'd moved back into the house about 5 months after I retired. Said he was between opportunities, that Nashville rent was eating him alive, that he just needed a few months to get back on his feet. I told him the upstairs bedroom was his, as long as he needed it. I meant it. A father wants to help his kids. That's what you do. Derek was charming. Always had been. Even as a boy, he could walk into a room and make everyone in it feel like they mattered. He had Linda's smile, wide and warm and completely disarming. When he turned it on you, you forgot whatever complaint you'd been holding. That was his gift. Or maybe it was his weapon. I just didn't know the difference yet. About 3 weeks after he moved back in, Derek came home one evening carrying a brown paper bag from a health food store downtown. He set it on the kitchen table and pulled out a large amber bottle filled with capsules. Greenish-brown capsules, the kind that look like they're made of compressed herbs and good intentions. "Dad, I've been reading about this," he said, his voice eager and earnest. "After Mom passed, after everything you've been through with work and your joints and your blood pressure, you need to be taking better care of yourself." I talked to a naturopathic specialist, a guy downtown who's worked with retired athletes and older guys dealing with exactly what you're dealing with. He put together a custom supplement blend: turmeric, ashwagandha, magnesium, some adaptogenic herbs, all natural. He said within a month, you'll feel 10 years younger. I looked at the bottle. I looked at my son. He was smiling. That smile, Linda's smile, and something in my chest softened. My boy was taking care of me. After all those years of me providing for him, feeding him, raising him, he was finally giving something back. That thought alone was worth more than any supplement. You didn't have to do that, I said. I wanted to. You deserve it, Dad. After everything you've built, everything you've sacrificed for this family, let me do this one thing. Just take 2 every morning with breakfast. I'll make sure the bottle stays full. So I did. Every morning, without fail, I'd sit down at the kitchen table, pour myself a glass of orange juice, and swallow 2 of those greenish-brown capsules. Derek would be there most mornings, pouring his own coffee, watching me take them with this expression of quiet satisfaction, like he was proud of himself for doing something good for his old man. 2 weeks later, the trembling started. At first, it was barely noticeable. A slight shake in my fingers when I reached for something, a wobble in my grip when I held a glass. I told myself it was age, or maybe too much caffeine, or maybe just the natural consequence of 40 years of gripping power tools and hammers and heavy lumber. Bodies wear out. That's what they do. But then came the stomach problems. Not occasional discomfort. A relentless, grinding nausea that hit me every single morning like clockwork. I'd wake up feeling like my insides had been wrung out like a dish rag. Some mornings I couldn't make it past the hallway bathroom before everything came back up. I'd grip the sink and stare at my face in the mirror and see someone I barely recognized. Pale, gray, hollowed out. The weight started dropping. 5 pounds the first month, then 8 more. My jeans needed a belt I hadn't worn in years. My shirts hung on me like I'd borrowed them from a bigger man. I could see my collarbones protruding, something I hadn't seen since I was a teenager working summers hauling hay. You need to see a doctor, Emily said over the phone one Sunday. She could hear it in my voice, that thin, reedy quality that sick people develop when their bodies are using every ounce of energy just to function. I'm fine, sweetheart. Probably just a bug. Dad, you've had this bug for 6 weeks. She was right. But I was stubborn. Always have been. You don't build 400 houses by giving in easily. So, I waited another 2 weeks before finally calling Dr. Patel, my physician of 11 years. Dr. Patel ran everything. Complete blood panel, metabolic workup, thyroid function, liver enzymes, kidney markers. He listened to my heart, checked my lungs, tested my reflexes, looked in my ears and eyes and throat. The whole routine. 3 days later, his office called with the results. Everything was normal. Every single test, perfectly within range. Heart strong, liver fine, kidneys functioning beautifully. No diabetes, no thyroid issues, no autoimmune markers, no cancer indicators. On paper, I was a healthy 66-year-old man. Could be stress-related, Dr. Patel said when I went back for the follow-up. You retired recently. You lost your wife not long ago. The body processes grief in ways we don't always recognize. I'd recommend counseling, maybe some light exercise, meditation if you're open to it. I wasn't open to it. I wasn't grieving myself into a skeleton. Something was physically wrong with me, and nobody could tell me what. Over the next 2 months, I saw 3 more doctors. A gastroenterologist who scoped me and found nothing. A neurologist who tested every nerve pathway and declared me sharp. A rheumatologist who checked for autoimmune conditions and came up empty. Each appointment ended the same way: a confused doctor, a clean bill of health, and me walking out feeling worse than when I walked in. Meanwhile, Derek kept filling the bottle. Every few weeks, he'd come home with a fresh supply of those capsules. The naturopath said, "It takes time to build up in your system," he told me. "Give it another month. You'll start feeling the difference soon." I believed him. God help me. I believed him because he was my son, and he was looking me in the eye and telling me he cared. What father doesn't want to believe that? Emily drove up from Memphis one weekend unannounced. She walked through the front door and stopped in the hallway, her bag still on her shoulder, her mouth slightly open. She stared at me for a long time before she spoke. "Dad, what happened to you?" "I'm fine, Em." "You are not fine. You've lost at least 30 pounds. Your skin is gray. Your hands are shaking. What is going on?" I told her about the doctors, the tests, the clean results, the confusion. She listened the way she always did, completely, with her whole attention, and when I finished, there was something in her expression that I hadn't seen before. Not just worry, something sharper, something calculating, like she was running through possibilities in her mind and not liking any of them. "What supplements are you taking?" she asked. "Just the ones Derek got me. Natural stuff, turmeric, herbs, nothing crazy." "Can I see the bottle?" I brought it to her. She turned it over in her hands, studying the label. There was no brand name, no manufacturer information, no ingredient list, just a plain white label with custom blend. "Take 2 daily," written in generic black type. "Where did he get these?" "Some naturopathic specialist downtown." "What's the specialist's name?" I realized I didn't know. Derek had never mentioned a name. I'd never asked. Emily set the bottle down carefully, like it was something that might bite her. "Dad, I want to take a few of these with me. I want to have them analyzed." "Analyzed?" "Emily, they're vitamins." "Maybe they are. But something is making you sick, and everything else has been ruled out. Will you let me do this?" "Please?" I agreed because I didn't have the energy to argue, and because somewhere beneath my stubbornness, a small voice was beginning to whisper that my daughter might be seeing something I'd refused to look at. Emily took 6 capsules, sealed them in a Ziploc bag, and drove them to a friend of hers in Memphis, a retired pharmacist named Walter Chen, who'd volunteered at the community health clinic where Emily worked. Walter was 71 years old, a quiet man of Taiwanese descent who'd spent 43 years behind pharmacy counters across Tennessee. Emily trusted him completely. 2 days later, she called me. Her voice was very controlled, very measured, the way people speak when they're trying not to scream. "Dad, I need you to stop taking those capsules right now." "What?" "Why?" Walter tested them. "They're not vitamins, Dad. They contain trace amounts of arsenic, small enough that you wouldn't taste it, small enough that it would accumulate slowly in your system over months, but enough to, Dad, it's arsenic. Someone put arsenic in those capsules." The word hung in the air between us. Arsenic. I knew what arsenic was. Every man who's worked in construction knows about arsenic. It used to be in pressure-treated lumber before they changed the regulations. It's a poison. A slow, methodical, devastating poison. "That's not possible," I said. Walter ran the test 3 times. "He's certain. Derek got these from a specialist. Someone must have." "Dad." Emily's voice broke. "There is no specialist." I searched. I called every naturopathic practitioner in Nashville. Every single one. Nobody has a client named Derek Calloway. Nobody made a custom blend for anyone matching his description. He lied, Dad. He made these himself. I sat down on the edge of my bed. The room tilted. The bottle. The plain amber bottle that had sat on my counter for months. The one my son filled with such care. With such apparent love, that bottle was a weapon. Those capsules were bullets. And my son had been loading the gun every single week. "Are you there?" Emily asked. "I'm here. We have to call the police." "I know. Tonight, Dad. We can't wait." But before I could respond, I heard the front door open downstairs. Derek's footsteps in the hallway, his keys hitting the counter. And then, his voice, casual and warm, calling up to me the way he did every evening. "Hey, Dad, you take your supplements today?" Something inside me went cold. Not fear exactly, something beyond fear. The recognition of danger in a voice I'd loved my entire life. I gripped the phone tighter. "Emily, he's here. Don't say anything to him. Don't let him know. I'm driving up tonight. I'll be there by midnight. We'll go to the police together in the morning. Just act normal, Dad. Can you do that?" I told her I could. I went downstairs and sat across from my son at the dinner table and ate the chicken he'd grilled and listened to him talk about a job interview he'd had, and I smiled and nodded, and the whole time my hands were trembling under the table. And not from the arsenic. From rage. Emily arrived at 11:30 that night. Derek was already in his room with the door closed. She came in quietly through the back door, and we sat in the kitchen with the lights low, and she showed me Walter's report. The analysis was thorough, clinical, devastating. Each capsule contained approximately 0.3 milligrams of arsenic trioxide mixed with genuine turmeric and herb powder to mask the taste and appearance. At 2 capsules per day, I'd been ingesting 0.6 milligrams daily for roughly 5 months. Not enough to kill quickly, just enough to slowly, systematically destroy me from the inside out. Walter says the tremors, the nausea, the weight loss, the skin changes, it's all consistent with chronic arsenic exposure, Emily whispered. He says if you'd kept taking them for another 3 or 4 months, the organ damage could have become permanent or fatal. I stared at the report. The numbers blurred in front of my eyes, not because I couldn't read them, but because my mind refused to process what they meant. My son had been killing me. Slowly, deliberately, with full knowledge of what he was doing. And he'd been doing it with a smile on his face every single morning. Why? I asked. It was the only word I could manage. Emily pulled out her phone and showed me something else. Bank records she'd managed to access. Derek had listed me as co-signer on an account years ago and never removed me. The records showed debts, massive debts, online gambling platforms, payday loans, credit cards, maxed to their limits. He owed over $380,000 to various creditors and collectors. Some of those creditors, based on the threatening messages Emily had found, screenshot on his cloud backup, were not the kind of people who filed lawsuits. They were the kind who showed up at your door. And my life insurance policy, the one I'd taken out 20 years ago when Linda was still alive, was worth $750,000. Derek was the primary beneficiary. He was going to collect on your death, Emily said, her eyes red. He moved back in so he could control the dosing. He made up the naturopath so you wouldn't question the capsules. He's been planning this, Dad. For months before he even moved in. The police station in Nashville was quiet at 7 in the morning. Emily and I walked in together. I was carrying the amber bottle in a plastic bag. Emily had Walter's analysis printed out, along with the bank records and screenshots. Detective James Harwell was a tall man in his 50s, with a military haircut, and the kind of steady, unreadable expression that comes from decades of hearing terrible things. He listened to everything we told him. He read Walter's report. He examined the bottle. He looked at the bank records. And then he picked up his phone and called the forensic lab. I need a rush analysis on a substance, he said. Possible arsenic poisoning case. Suspected attempted homicide. He turned back to us. Mr. Calloway, I need you to go to Vanderbilt Medical Center today. Tell them exactly what you've been exposed to and for how long. They'll start chelation therapy to remove the arsenic from your system. Time matters here. What about my son? I asked. We'll handle your son. I'm applying for a search warrant within the hour. We'll have officers at your home by this afternoon. He doesn't know yet, Emily said. He doesn't know that we know. Good. That gives us the advantage. We'll bring him in for questioning before he has a chance to destroy evidence. I went to Vanderbilt. The toxicologist who examined me, Dr. Reeves, tested my blood and urine. The results confirmed what Walter had found. My arsenic levels were nearly 4 times the normal threshold. Dr. Reeves told me plainly that another few months of exposure could have caused irreversible liver and kidney failure. She started chelation treatment that same day. While I was at the hospital, Detective Harwell executed the search warrant. Officers found Derek's laptop, which contained search history for arsenic dosage, lethal accumulation, slow poisoning symptoms timeline, how long for arsenic to be fatal, and life insurance payout process after death. They found a small container of arsenic trioxide hidden in a locked toolbox in his closet, purchased online under a fake name from an industrial chemical supplier. They found empty gel capsules and a small capsule filling machine. They found everything. Derek was arrested at the house at 2:17 in the afternoon. According to Detective Harwell, he didn't resist. He didn't say anything at all. He just sat on the couch with his hands on his knees and stared at the floor while they read him his rights. But that silence didn't last. I called him that evening from the hospital. Emily begged me not to, but I needed to hear it from him. I needed to understand. Derek, it's Dad. Silence. I know what you did. The police know. They found everything in your room. The arsenic, the equipment, your search history. Everything. More silence. Then, very quietly, you weren't supposed to find out. That's all you have to say? You don't understand, Dad. His voice cracked. You have no idea what these people would have done to me. They threatened to break my legs. They said they'd burn the house down. I owed them everything. And I had nothing. You were sitting on all that money, all that insurance, living in that big house alone, and you wouldn't even— I would have given you anything, I said. And my voice broke too. Anything, Derek. All you had to do was ask. All you had to do was tell me the truth. You would have been disappointed. I'm disappointed now. He started crying. Ugly, choking sobs that sounded like they were being torn out of him. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. I didn't want to hurt you. I couldn't see any other way. There were 1,000 other ways. You chose the one that would kill your father. The line went quiet. Then, very softly, he said something that I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. I know. And I'll never forgive myself. Neither will I said. But I might learn to live with it. You need to learn to live with what you've done too. And you're going to do that from prison. The trial lasted 2 weeks. The prosecution presented Walter's analysis, the hospital records, the forensic lab confirmation, Derek's search history, the physical evidence from his room, and my testimony. Emily testified about discovering the truth. Walter testified about the capsule analysis. Dr. Reeves testified about my arsenic levels and the damage to my body. Derek's lawyer attempted to argue diminished capacity, claiming the gambling addiction and threats from creditors had impaired his judgment. The judge wasn't persuaded. Mr. Calloway, she said, addressing Derek directly, you didn't act in a moment of desperation. You planned this over months. You researched dosages. You purchased materials. You manufactured poison and administered it to your own father daily while looking him in the eye. This court finds no basis for diminished capacity. She sentenced him to 20 years, with no possibility of parole for the first 8. Derek was led out of the courtroom in handcuffs. He looked back at me once. I don't know what he expected to see in my face. Hatred, maybe. Or pity. What I hope he saw was grief, because that's what I felt. Not anger anymore. Just a deep, boundless grief for the son I'd raised and the man he'd become, and the distance between those two people that could never be bridged. Recovery was slow. The chelation therapy pulled the arsenic from my blood, but the damage it had done to my nervous system took months to heal. The tremors faded gradually. My appetite returned in stages. I gained back the weight over the course of nearly a year, pound by careful pound. My hair, which had thinned considerably, never quite grew back to what it was. Dr. Reeves told me that was normal for chronic arsenic exposure. Some things the body recovers from some things leave marks. Emily moved to Nashville. She transferred to a social work position at Vanderbilt and rented an apartment 15 minutes from my house. We had dinner together every Wednesday and Sunday. She never once said, "I told you so." She never once made me feel foolish for trusting my own son. She just showed up, week after week, and loved me the way a child is supposed to love a parent. Walter Chen and I became friends. He'd come by the house sometimes on Saturday mornings, and we'd sit on the back porch drinking coffee and talking about nothing in particular. He never made a big deal about what he'd done. "I just looked at the capsules," he'd say. Anyone with a chemistry background would have caught it. But that wasn't true. Not anyone would have caught it. Not anyone would have taken the time, run the test 3 times to be sure, delivered the results with the care and precision that Walter brought to everything he did. He saved my life with 43 years of pharmaceutical knowledge. and a simple willingness to look closely at something that didn't seem right. People ask me if I forgive Derek. I've thought about that question more than any other question in my life, and the honest answer is this. I forgive the boy I raised. I forgive the child who used to sit on my lap at job sites and hand me nails one by one. I forgive the teenager who helped me roof the Patterson house in July heat without a single complaint. I forgive every version of my son that existed before the gambling took hold and the debts piled up and the fear twisted him into someone I don't recognize. But the man who stood in my kitchen every morning and watched me swallow poison while asking if I'd slept well, I'm still working on forgiving that man. I may never get there, and I've made peace with that. What I've learned from all of this is simple and painful. Trust is not enough. Love is not enough. You have to pay attention. You have to notice the small things, the bottle with no label, the son who never gives you the doctor's name, the clean test results that don't match what your body is screaming at you. You have to listen to the people around you who see what you can't see, who ask the questions you're afraid to ask. Emily saved my life because she was brave enough to doubt what I was too afraid to question. And God put the right people in my path at the right time. Emily's courage, Walter's expertise, Detective Harwell's efficiency, Dr. Reeves's skill. None of that was coincidence. I believe that, with everything I have, if you're watching this and something feels wrong in your life, something you can't explain, something that doesn't add up, something that everyone keeps telling you is fine. When your gut says otherwise, listen to that voice. Don't wait. Don't be polite. Don't protect anyone's feelings at the expense of your own safety. The people who love you will understand. And the people who don't love you well, those are the ones you need protection from. If my story meant something to you, leave a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from. Share your own experience if you have one. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And remember, sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one who's smiling at you. Pay attention, stay safe, and trust yourself. God bless every single one of you.